A villager gathering firewood found a tomb raider's tunnel. When archaeologists arrived to investigate, they uncovered 47 wooden coffins buried in neat rows in the dirt, each one carved from a single tree trunk. Inside, young women, between 15 and 25 years old. One of them, number G25, was found lying on her right side, her right hand pillowing her head, like she'd fallen asleep. They had jade, they had bamboo mats. Someone prepared them with care, but most of them weren't wearing any clothes. Not one of them was older than 25. Not one lived to see another harvest. They were buried on the same day, in the same pit, in the summer. Whatever happened here happened fast, and it happened all at once. Welcome to Mosaic Antiquity. The year was 2007, Jiangxi province, southeast China. When the pit was fully opened, what the archaeologists saw was unlike anything they'd encountered before. Bamboo mats were still in place, still green, as if freshly laid. But exposed to air, they blackened within minutes. This is the Lizhou'ao Eastern Zhou Tomb, roughly 2,500 years old, from the spring and autumn period, a time when China was divided into dozens of small kingdoms. Most left no trace in written history. This one left almost nothing at all. And yet, here, beneath the soil, something remained. A message waiting to be found. 47 coffins, 22 still holding the women inside them. In a place where bone is normally erased by time, even this survival is unusual. Southern China's acidic soil consumes everything: bone, teeth, tissue. But in a few of these burials, something even more unexpected survived. Brain tissue. Not intact, but still identifiable. Hemispheres, cerebellum, brainstem, shrunk to the size of a fist, but still there. Every individual examined so far tells the same story. Female, young, none older than 25. A group of lives that appear to have ended at the same age, at the same moment in history, buried together in one summer. Which leaves only one question. Who were they? The coffins held a clue. Almost every woman was buried with the same set of objects. A bamboo basket placed beside them, containing weaving tools. Bronze knives, ceramic spindles, wooden thread boards. The same arrangement. Repeated coffin after coffin. Nothing about these objects suggests wealth, nothing suggests decoration. And yet they were placed there deliberately. In the Eastern Zhou world, what was buried with the dead often reflected what they were in life. So at first glance, the explanation seems simple. They worked with textiles, but the evidence doesn't stop there. Inside the coffins, archaeologists found more than 300 fragments of fabric: silk, gauze, brocade, embroidery. One sample shows 240 warp threads per square centimeter. For context, a noblewoman buried 4 centuries later in the same region went to her grave with fabric barely half that density. So, something doesn't quite fit. These materials suggest a level of craftsmanship that shouldn't align with what survives of this kingdom. A place that barely appears in historical records and yet preserves work of extraordinary refinement, almost too advanced for what we know of the time. Which leaves a problem. If they were weavers, they were not ordinary ones. But even that still doesn't tell us who they really were, only that whatever they were doing followed them into death. Then something begins to feel wrong. They were wrapped in textiles or bamboo mats. The bodies carefully bound and placed into individual coffins. But most of them were not dressed. Only a few coffins still contained garments, and chemical analysis showed that at least 2 of them had been dyed with cinnabar, a pigment associated with elite use. Jade, bamboo mats, fine textiles, care in almost every detail. And yet most of the women were buried without clothing. The combination doesn't resolve into a clear pattern. It raises a question instead. Was this ritual or something else? There is no way to know for certain. So the next question is unavoidable. What actually happened to them? The simplest explanation comes first. They were killed. A raid. An attack. Something violent. But the skeletons don't support that. No cut marks, no fractures, no trauma on the bones at all. The kind of evidence violence almost always leaves behind is absent here, so violence becomes less likely. Then, disease is considered, an epidemic sweeping through the group. But disease does not behave this selectively. It does not target only women between 15 and 25. It does not leave surrounding populations untouched, and it does not result in carefully arranged individual burials, each accompanied by grave goods. So that explanation also fails to hold. Not violence, not disease, and not disorder. Because nothing here looks rushed, everything is structured, measured, intentional. 3 possibilities. And all of them closed, which leaves only one place left to look. Inside them, and inside their bodies. There was melon. Hundreds of seeds per coffin, undigested. They had eaten them just before they died. Melon, a summer fruit. A shared final meal. Every woman had the same seeds in the same state. They ate together and died together within hours. The bones leave no room for doubt. What happened next is where the trail begins to shift. 12 of the skeletons show something unexpected. Green crystals forming on the bone, not stains, not surface discoloration. Crystals, growing outward from within, spreading across the skull, lining the cavities, branching along the skeleton. At first glance, it suggests poisoning, but laboratory analysis ruled it out. The mineral is Vivianite. It forms when phosphorus from decomposing tissue reacts with iron in groundwater. The tomb sits in iron-rich red clay. Over thousands of years that chemistry did the rest. What looks like evidence of death is actually evidence of what happened afterward. And once again, the explanation collapses. We were close to an answer, but it slips away, so the question returns. What really happened here? We have examined the tools, the textiles, the crystals. None of them resolve into a complete explanation. So the focus shifts, not to what was inside the bodies, but to where they were placed. Among the 47 coffins, one stands apart. G47. 46 are Chinese fur, ordinary, practical, consistent with the rest of the burial. G47 is different. Non-mu wood, rare, resistant to decay, associated with high status. An outer coffin, a second layer. In the Eastern Zhou world, that was not decoration. It was rank. And near the head, a gold ornament 30 centimeters across, 15 dragons arranged in concentric rings, hammered and carved by hand. The only gold in the entire tomb. Everything about it is different. The wood, the structure, the presence of gold. For a moment, the pattern seems to resolve. This must be the central figure. The burial must be built around her. But then you look at the position. In Eastern Zhou burials, the main occupant is placed at the center. G47 is not. It sits at the southeast edge of the pit. Not central, not the focus, not where a primary burial would be expected. Which raises a difficult possibility. What if even the most elaborately buried individual here was not the central figure at all? If that is true, then every woman in this pit, even the one marked by gold, was part of something larger. A collective burial. A single act involving 47 lives, arranged for someone else. But that still leaves the question unresolved. Where is that person? No larger tomb has ever been identified nearby. No structure, no inscription, no confirmed burial site that matches. 47 burials, and no identifiable master. There is one more detail. Beside G47, archaeologists documented another pit, J48. It was empty. No coffin, no body, no grave goods. Yeah, not disturbed, not looted, just never used. A space prepared for burial, but left unfilled. The pit was dug, but the burial never took place. Someone was meant to lie there, and they never arrived. In a record already defined by absence, this empty space becomes something harder to explain than anything else. Not evidence of what happened, but of what did not. The archaeology can't give us their names, their thoughts, or why they died. The record ends where it began, with a question the soil never answered. So we return to that summer. They sit at their looms like any other summer, but today is not like any other day. Melons are brought, a meal, but no one can eat the way they used to. Some cannot swallow. Tears fall onto the fruit. Others force it down. If this is the last one, at least they won't face it hungry. Some sit and say nothing, and some try to run, but armored soldiers push them back. Their lives were never theirs to begin with. They are not asked. They are not given a choice. This world decides for them, when they live, when they die, and what they give to the dead. But the mountains remember. 2,500 years later, green still blooms from their bones. Small flowers no one planted. Perhaps heaven's way of mourning what was taken. Next time, China's largest excavated tomb. 186 human sacrifices. The most ever found in an ancient Chinese tomb. 247 robber tunnels. More than any other tomb ever discovered. And clues that the Qin were already on the path to empire. Subscribe to Mosaic Antiquity, and we'll see you there.